This is the B-Team Podcast, brought to you by Jackrabbit Illustrated. The B-Team is presented by Drake's Place in Battle, South Dakota, and sponsored by Jackrabbit Central and Shenanigans in Sioux Falls. Now, here are your B-Team hosts, Brendan and Ben.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into a special edition of the Splitting Hares podcast, part of Jackrabbit Illustrated. As always, big shout out to our title sponsors, Drake's Place in Bowdle, South Dakota, as well as Cottonwood Coffee and Bistro in Brookings, South Dakota. We have a very special guest with us here late at night, tuning in, especially out on the East Coast. Ryan from the, oh my God, I'm so sorry, sir.
It's been one of those nights already. I'm having microphone problems, and apologize to Ryan.
Ryan Fannon with us from Villanova. Ryan, you're calling in while you're driving. Thank you so much for making time for us. And
hey,
we look
guys,
like a shoestring operation here.
No, it's great to join you guys, and what an unbelievable football game tomorrow. And congrats to the Jackrabbits for an impressive couple wins and a quarterfinal game. And it's so interesting when you saw 7 of the top 8 seeds advance. But South Dakota State, to me, was always a seeded team. And when the bracket came out, I thought this matchup had a tremendous opportunity to happen. And here we are.
Yeah, I mean, we were definitely counting on Villanova being our opponent if we did make it past Sac State, which we managed to do by the skin of our teeth there, barely. From a Villanova standpoint, and I guess everybody looking, we don't get to catch a lot of CAA games or really a lot of CAA action with the Flow Sports, and everybody out here just tends to have ESPN Plus and catch the FCS that way. But generally speaking, at least out this part of the country, there was kind of a sense that the CAA was a little bit down outside of basically Villanova and James Madison. From broadcasting all the games and things like that, is that a sense that you kind of had, like there's a bunch of young teams or things like that, or is that kind of overblown by folks like us that are Missouri Valley Conference football fans?
I think all of us that have followed it, the years go in cycles, but, at the end of the day, the consistency of the Mo Valley and the Big Sky and the CAA, the test of time has shown that they're just incredible programs, incredible conferences. And there's going to be certain years. And when Rhode Island went to Elon and Elon had a winning season on the line on November 20th and Rhode Island lost, I thought they were going to have a tough time getting in at 7-4. And, Delaware, had a couple games at the end of the year and they couldn't beat Richmond. And then Villanova, of course, beat Delaware in the huge rivalry game on November 20th. And next thing you know, you're looking at the bracket and you're saying this could be 2 teams in the CAA that just never happens. The league always gets 3, 4, or 5. So in that respect, 2 national championship contending teams entered the bracket, but only 2 getting in was definitely a surprise.
Yeah, I don't think I can ever remember a year where the CAA only had 2 teams in the bracket. That's just unheard of. But obviously Delaware we faced in the spring, they had quarterback issues and injuries, things like that, and that can really derail a season. But looking at this Villanova squad, you guys, I said when Matt for Jackrabbit Illustrated, we call him the Podfather, when he came out with his preview of Villanova and things like that, what I got from it is Villanova is still Villanova. Different players than we saw back when you guys came out to Brookings last time, with our roles a little bit flipped here. But it's still a tough as nails East Coast defensive, hard-nosed football team. Is that pretty well sum up what Villanova is this year, or am I missing a couple things offensively or something?
No, I think when you look at our team, we've been consistent defensive team the entire year with just 2 unbelievable linebackers in Forrest Ryan and Amin Black that just make play after play after play. And Forrest Ryan last week, 21 tackles in a game, 2 sacks. I mean, he's just an incredible football player. And, we've been really good with our 3-3-5 defense. We've gotten consistency on the back end with some tremendous defensive backs, and one in Christian Benford that's got a chance to be an NFL player. And, Malik Fisher coming off the edge and on the first level. And then on the second level, I mentioned the two linebackers. We've just been really good defensively, and we've actually gotten better as the year's gone on defensively. So it's a hard-nosed, tough to run against. We had the one William and Mary game that was just hard to really explain. It was just a really tremendous performance by William and Mary. We had 4 turnovers. They had 1. They won the turnover battle +3, and they just ran the ball at us very effectively, which was just really not who we are all year. I mean, even Villanova held Penn State to under 20 yards rushing in the first half of the game back in Happy Valley, back in, early in the season in September. So this has been a really good defensive team. Offensively, a lot of firepower, but streaky offensively. Dan Smith, last week goes 8 for 22. But some games, he gets in a rhythm, and we go down to JMU and, look at the way they took out Montana tonight, 28-6. I mean, This is a team now that is 12-1 and lost 1 game, and it was to Villanova at JMU. I mean, I think it's our best regular season win. The way JMU's playing right now, it's as good of a regular season win we've had against an FCS team, really maybe since we brought football back in '85. In terms of JMU was undefeated. They were number 2 and 3 in both major polls, and we went to Harrisonburg and beat them on October 9th. So, that was our marquee win of the year. We played Penn State, very respectable final score there. They reversed a call at the end of the game that could have gone either way. We almost got out of Happy Valley with a 38-24 loss. It was 38-17. So it's been an impressive year for Villanova. I just think tomorrow is going to come down to how good can our quarterback, Dan Smith. If he plays really well, it's just by far the biggest key. And I know that's obvious when you say quarterbacks have to play well, but I'm telling you, this South Dakota State team is so impressive to me on both sides of the ball that we can't beat them without him playing well, in my opinion. Really well.
Right, because I was going to ask, with that Holy Cross game, I know Holy Cross is probably overlooked a little bit by a lot of your FCS pundits and people who watch and things like that. But it still felt like Villanova was a lot more talented team and everything in that Holy Cross game. Was he just off because of something Holy Cross did, or like where you were saying he's just really streaky and just had a bad day?
Well, you guys remember when that stunner happened 3 years ago when JMU lost to a Patriot League team in Colgate on the walk-off field goal in Hamilton, New York. So when I was tracking Holy Cross and I knew we had a chance on the regional dynamic to really play them, and I thought there was an excellent chance we were going to play them, and give credit to Sacred Heart. They played an unbelievable game, and, Holy Cross had to pull it out in the waning seconds. But when we played them, I just knew that they were one of the better Patriot League teams in a while. And I think, people look at them and say, well, Patriot League teams don't usually advance in the playoffs, and South Dakota State beat them 31-3 last year. How good can they be? Well, watching them live, they were the real deal. I think they were much improved from the year before. And when I say year before, I mean, obviously the spring season. I mean, it's all one calendar year, which is still hard to believe. But it was,
we do that too.
It was just an impressive game. Sluka, their quarterback, he is just fierce competitor, and defensively they were clicking on all cylinders. And, the old playoff motto, survive and advance, and we found a way.
I think their defense is strongly overlooked. When we played them, they gave us fits the first half for sure.
Yeah, it was one of those games. They got the ball back and they got into our territory, and we just made a couple huge plays on 3rd and 4th down to turn it over on downs. And then I'm sitting there and I'm watching the play clock at 22 seconds and the game clock at 28 seconds and on fourth down, and I'm going, this is unbelievable. I mean, I literally was driving in my car and heard the South Dakota State game live.
Oh no.
When,
are you part of ESPN? You got to bring that back up.
Oh my God. It was wild because when I was listening on radio and the game is over. No, it's not. Hold on.
Yeah, that ball soared right over our heads.
Yeah.
That got thrown out of bounds.
It's incredible. The stands come so close to the field. That's really what cost them having the extra play, as you know.
Well,
big time.
I mean, they gave him a second. They can't really prove was there or not. It's a strange deal.
It's so crazy, though, when you think about it. I mean, you got the way you've played in the last 6 games. I mean, it wasn't for a fluke Hail Mary. I mean, you're a top 8 seed, and who knows, what your path might have been. But I still think you didn't get a seed, and you didn't deserve it at 8-3, and you would have been a lock at 9-2 for a top 8 seed. I think that's an obvious statement I'm making. But you know what? When you watch your team right now, whether you play home or away, you guys are playing at a level that's national championship caliber. And it's going to come down to tomorrow, who's going to execute, who's going to win the turnover battle, who's going to outplay each other between Dan Smith and Chris Oladokin. I mean, your depth on the defensive line, how does that match up with Villanova's offensive line? That's a very good unit, but you guys just come after people and you just keep subbing and you don't get tired. And, you're two-headed monster now with Isaiah Davis healthy. There's just a lot to like about your team. I'm an old school 1AA FCS guy. I've been calling Villanova games for 29 years. I'm 51 years old, and I was lucky enough to get this job at age 22 when I graduated from Villanova, and I went from student radio into the commercial network. And there's nothing like these playoff games. There's nothing like this format. The FBS, I just laugh. I'm like, they can't get it right. And we've been getting this thing right since 1978.
You couldn't be more correct. I'd be a little remiss if I didn't ask a little bit about your history. Are you more of a basketball guy or a football guy?
You know what? I've always been in the moment kind of guy from a broadcasting perspective. I've been fortunate enough to do the play-by-play for Villanova basketball for 24 years now. And, I
had
never
a couple
thought,
national championships
yeah,
in
it's
there.
crazy. I mean, thank goodness for Jay
Wright
and Andy Talley and Mark Ferrani now. I mean, just around amazing people and incredible coaches. And I've gotten to call 3 Final Fours and 2 national championship games in college basketball and a national championship game in football when we beat Montana 23-21 back in the final game ever played in Chattanooga in 2009 before I went to Frisco in 2010. So, yeah, it's just been a very I just feel very lucky and blessed that I've had a chance to call these games in my alma mater all these years.
That is incredible to have been able to witness all those different things, because like especially at the FCS level, you'll have teams that win national titles, but they're not winning national titles in basketball at the same time. So that confluence of things is so unique.
Yeah, it was incredible. And, I often think about this story. When Villanova went on the run to the national championship, when it was 16 teams in 2009, we beat, ironically, Holy Cross in the round of 16. Deja vu 12 years later. We're playing them again. In the second round, we beat New Hampshire in a snowstorm convincingly. But when we got to the semifinals and the finals, we won the last 2 games to win the national championship by a combined 3 points.
Wow.
We beat William & Mary by 1, and we beat Montana by 2, 23-21. And it's like, you look back at the history of these playoff games. I mean, Villanova came out to Brookings in 2016 with our legendary coach, Andy Talley, who was the first Villanova player or coach to go into the College Football Hall of Fame ever on Tuesday night in Vegas. And that was, as you guys remember, that was the last game of his storied career. And Villanova went out there, and I mean, that was just a slugfest. The defensive effort of those 2 units for the Jackrabbits and the Wildcats was unbelievable, and a field goal hits the upright and goes in.
Right.
And there's your difference in a 10-7 loss for Villanova and you guys moving on. I mean, it's such a fine line. I think nationally, you look around and everybody's picking South Dakota State nationally to win this game tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they're playing at an incredible level. But I think one thing about Villanova that might be underestimated a little bit, just from my perspective of studying your season and our season, is you're playing your 24th game. You didn't get a bye. Yep. You had to play UC Davis and go to Sacramento State. Now you got to go across the country and play Villanova. Well, Villanova got a bye, didn't have to play for 2 weeks, and then got to sleep in their own beds for another week. I mean, it hit us. We hit the wall in 2010, the year after we won the national championship. We had to go to Stephen F. Austin in Texas. We had to go to Boone, North Carolina, and play App State when they were still FCS. And then we had to go all the way to Cheney, Washington, and play on the red carpet in the semifinals. And we hit the wall in the second half after 3 straight playoff games. And I'm just really intrigued after you all made the incredible run to the title game in the spring and you haven't had a week off in so long. Will there be anything by the time you get to the third and fourth quarter tomorrow that you see on teams sometimes when the run hits them from travel and long seasons and then this unprecedented calendar year that never ends? So I'm fascinated to see how we'll be tomorrow in the middle and late third quarter compared to your team. But then I go back to my point about your depth, especially on your defensive line. And maybe you guys will just be incredibly fresh in the third quarter tomorrow. But I'm going to watch it so closely because it could happen because it happened to us.
Yeah, I was looking at that today, and on top of all the games you mentioned total in the calendar year and the travel and things like that, on top of that, we had a bye week really early in the season. It was week 3. I just counted it up. 12. This will be the 12th game in a row without a break. So yeah, personally, that's a major concern of mine. On the lines, I think it helps that we rotate a lot of guys, but that is a concern. Guys are banged up. I know, there's a lot of guys banged up. It's football, but boy, that is definitely a huge concern for SDSU, especially going from one coast almost to the next in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and there's so many storylines to this game. I mean, another matchup that's interesting to me is Villanova has tremendous depth at tailback. I mean, Covington, Justin Covington, and Jalen Jackson is a name that a lot of people don't talk about, but he's just looks so impressive in the playoffs. And D. Will Barley, and then you bring TDI Odurojaye in, from time to time. And we have 4 tailbacks that, we're going to be fresh. From a running game perspective, we don't get tired. We have too many guys that we get better as the game goes on in our run game. And that's another thing, as we talk about this matchup, your depth and your linebackers. I mean, Logan Backus and Adam Bach, just watching film this week. I mean, just incredible 2 players, just sort of like I was talking about Forrest Ryan and Amin Black for us.
Yep.
I mean, there's just
can't wait to watch that guy.
All over the field that they're just ballers.
Yeah, they're all over the place. And one thing, you've got 29 years of watching the FCS. When was the last year that you've seen this much up and down movement among the top 10? Who's going to be seeded and who's not? Because Villanova went, you guys went and beat JMU, and everyone was like, well, the 2 seeds pretty much locked up. And then William and Mary got you. Then we go out and we beat North Dakota State, and everybody was talking about how, top 4 seed just got to win out. Well, that didn't go as planned either. So, have you seen this much? When's the last time you've seen it? Because it usually seems like there's only 3 to 4 top teams, and this year it feels like there's 5 to 8 of them.
Well, it was just a wild that last weekend when Montana State was poised for a great seed and they lost. And I felt like when we were playing Delaware and we had to come from behind to beat Delaware in Newark, our big rival game. And, we're tracking scores and I'm looking and I'm going, okay, Sam Houston is a lock one. And I thought North Dakota State, because they beat 3 playoff teams in JMU, didn't. They weren't even close to that, I knew they were going to be the 3 seed. Like North Dakota State was going to get that 2 seed. And then after you went to 1, 2, 3, I remember saying to myself, if Sacramento State beats UC Davis in that finale, they're going to get that 4 seed.
Mm-hmm.
And when the bracket came out, I was looking at that and I'm like, just don't be the 6 seed, because I knew there was a very good chance when JMU was the 3 seed that we could have been exactly where Montana was tonight, the 6 seed, and having to go to JMU. And look, we could have gone to JMU and won again, but look, we went there and won this year. I didn't want to see them early on.
It's really tough to beat a great team twice, and
on their home
Bridgeport's
field.
Not an easy place to play.
JMU is a tremendous team. I mean, they are as good as anybody says and better. Like that game, unless East Tennessee State shocks the world tomorrow, which I don't think many people believe is going to happen. North Dakota State and JMU in the Fargo Dome is an epic game, because JMU's gone there and they've won before in a national semifinal in the Fargo Dome. And they're going to go back there most likely next weekend on Friday or Saturday, depending on how the TV works out and who gets the Friday night game, who gets the Saturday afternoon game. But that is just, I mean, you talk about history of games. That's an unbelievable game. JMU's last go around is an FCS before they go to FBS. And they're going to most likely play in the Fargo Dome next weekend. I mean, this is good stuff, guys.
It's a national championship title, rematch from just a couple of years ago.
Yep. It's going to be incredible. But just to finish my point a moment ago when I was talking about the seeding. So I'm watching the show and I thought I thought Sacramento State was going to get that 4 seed to go undefeated in the Big Sky in terms of in league play. I thought they deserved to be the 4 seed. And when that came up, I was just like, let us be the 5 seed. Let us be the 5 seed. And we were. And I thought we got a good side of the bracket. And then I saw you all going back to our conversation early, and I was like, they got a good shot to come to Philly. I just felt like Sacramento State had a really good year, but they didn't have that playoff pedigree that you all had. And the way you jumped them 24-0, I know the final was 24-19, but there was not a second that I just felt like that you weren't going to find a way to win that. And you did, and you advanced, and
that
now
makes one of us.
Here we are.
Jackrabbit Nation had a little bit of a meltdown about that game, for a huge meltdown for it being a game that we won.
It's like Villanova, right? I'm saying I didn't see anything like that on our end, because I just think, and again, this just goes back to 29 years of following this. Win a playoff game by 1 or 20, it doesn't matter. You just have to win. And sometimes when you don't play great one week and survive, you're poised for a lot of reasons to play better the next week. So I don't always buy into that. Like, oh, they won this game by 20, so now they're hot. Like, no, they're all separate entities week to week. Did you survive and advance? And if you did, it's a complete new slate. I think it's actually our advantage in a way that we didn't, crush Holy Cross. I think we're on alert. We're at home. We know that we have incredible respect for this team coming in the Jackrabbits. And we know if we don't play a tremendous game, we're not going to win. So I think we're ready to play a really good game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the defensive battle. Number 3 defense in the country. I can't wait to see that.
What's the weather supposed to be like out there?
So here's the weather forecast. It's fascinating because I love tracking this stuff. So it's going to rain overnight a little bit into the morning, and then it's supposed to stop. And it's going to be 65 degrees tomorrow between
nice.
2 and 5 o'clock.
Wow.
With the wind at 15, 16 miles an hour, gusting to over 20. The wind is a major factor in this game tomorrow. Who's going to have it in the first, in the third, in the second, and who's going to have the wind at their back, punting? There's a whole story within the story coming tomorrow. And then the rain could come in the fourth quarter again with some showers. But for the most part, and I just looked about a half an hour ago, we're looking at most likely 65 degrees, very windy, and balmy weather in Philadelphia in December. Crazy temperatures tomorrow.
Ryan, have you made the trip up Brookings when you came out in 2016?
Yeah, fortunately got to call the game, and this is a sort of a neat story to share with you all. From 1995 to 1999, Justin Sell, your athletic director, worked at Villanova and was a very good friend of mine, and we've stayed in touch forever. And I touched base with him this week, and I knew when he was at Villanova because he was one of the most genuine, hardworking people I've ever met in my life. And he had a passion to want to become an AD. And when he became the AD out there, I was just like, he's going to do incredible things. And I know he has. And we had a nice conversation this week. And, Tyler, the play-by-play voice, has been amazing, helping me get ready for this game. And the hospitality out there last time, I mean, you guys just have an amazing athletic department, a great program. And, it's interesting. You look at your history of the amount of playoff games you've been in, and it's almost identical to us. Like, we played 25 playoff games. We're 13-12. We've won one national championship. You guys were right there to win a national championship in the spring. And, you have a national championship caliber team this year. So, we'll see how this shakes out. But I touched base with Justin Sell when the bracket came out, and I said, it's right there. You guys go win 2. We got to win 1. Let's take care of business. And 3 wins later, and here we go, the Jackrabbits and the Wildcats.
Yeah, you don't see much better people than Justin Sell and Tyler. They're excellent at their jobs, and we're very blessed to have them. The reason I asked if you came out, I was just going to make a little joke. You said it was like 15 to 20 mile an hour winds, and I guess we lost you. I was going to point out for us, that's not really a win.
I was going to say, do you know what that weather reminds me almost exactly of is the weather for our opening round.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we got you back.
Great, thank you.
When you dropped off, I made a comment. The reason I asked if you came back to Brookings before is because our winds 15 to 20 isn't much of a wind. It's kind of a breeze. So
there you go. You guys are used to the wind.
Dakota winds.
Yeah.
Did you guys before
that's because North Dakota sucks, and Iowa blows the other way around.
Did you guys get a chance before I got cut off when I was talking about Justin Sell?
Yeah, we caught all that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So what happens? I'm just curious about the Villanova Stadium there. What happens to the wind when it does blow through there? I know it swirls really bad out here at the Dyke House. Is it a similar situation, or does it blow?
Our stadium capacity is 12,500. We play on an artificial turf, and the way the stadium goes, it seems like the wind just goes east to west a lot. So you're sometimes it swirls, but for the most part, it's pretty much, I find it pockets it where it's like whatever quarter you have it, it's at your back mostly.
Huh.
So it's like one of those things, I'm going to watch the coin toss tomorrow and see, who's got it in the first and, who's going to maybe have that at their back and get off to a good start. And then, it's, again, wind can be a factor and, maybe not. I mean, but it's
right.
You guys bring up a good point. You play a lot in the wind out there, and we don't play in it a lot, but it's going to be a factor tomorrow.
Well, and like I said to Chad, when we lost you for a second there, it reminds me a lot of the weather that we had in our first round. We did against Davis, and we had some serious struggles throwing with the wind at our back, even just controlling that ball a little bit. So that's kind of when we went full bore on the running game, and then I think Jack's fans would wish we'd have done that second game. But it's going to be interesting to watch. I'm really looking forward to it. I cannot wait until 2:00 tomorrow. Obviously, you're going to be at least sort of getting into it before we do with all your game day preparation, things like that. But I cannot wait for tomorrow.
Yeah, and just a couple as I'm looking at this game. What's really interesting to me too is with the way Villanova plays, they're 3-3-5, and looking at your offensive line and what a cool slogan they've got with the 605 Hogs. I'm an old school Washington Redskins fan with Bostic and Joe Jacoby and Mark May and oh my gosh, Russ Grimm. I mean, I grew up when Washington won all those Super Bowls under Joe Gibbs. So when I thought that you guys were the Hogs, I was like, that's pretty cool nickname. Going back to some old memories, being a DC guy growing up. But this, your offensive line, I'd like to ask you guys, if I could for a minute, how good is this offensive line compared to, recent years from your guys' perspective?
Compared to recent years, this group of linemen that we've had over the spring and this fall is the best that we've had come through at South Dakota State. And we've had some good old lines. I mean, the guys who were busting open holes for Zenner and Manette and those guys were great. It just feels that this offensive line in particular, even when we go up against the likes of team like NDSU, they can, if they are on and they want to, they will impose their will on a lot of teams. It's just that when it comes to a scheme like a 3-3-5, things like that, sometimes it gets us a little off balance, and that's the chess match I know I'm going to be watching the most tomorrow.
Yeah, it's and it's a veteran offensive line for Villanova, and we got a lot of 5th and 6th year guys that when we went to the playoffs in 2019, we went down to Hammond, Louisiana, and lost a shootout 45-44 to Southeastern Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And we had crazy injury issues on the back end, and they just threw all over us, unfortunately, in the second half when our guys kept going down. But, we're just a very different team than we were in 2019. But, the two-headed monster of Strong and Davis, I mean, that's as good as we've played in a long time.
Yeah, and a lot of their success is predicated on how well our line plays together, I mean, definitely Strong's the cutter and Davis is the smasher, but definitely the line getting 3 to 4 yards push every play. I mean,
Boy, I'll tell you what, watching your outside zone, when you can get Pierre Strong on the edge, and you don't get him at that defensive end part right there before he starts, it's like he gets faster while he's still running wide. He runs that outside zone. Just, wow, what a combination of speed, power, and quickness.
He's always been fast, but we've really seen him tick up this year. He spent some times working with Exos down in Texas, and man, he's picked up a step and a half.
And then you just get Davis going A gap, B gap, and just complement each other so well. And watching the film and the way you move your alignment and snap it, and next thing you know, Pierre Strong's 4 for 4 for 4 touchdowns. Crazy stats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he's the best quarterback on our team.
Well, I think he's up. Is he up to 6 or 8 touchdowns on his career now?
I think I heard 9.
9 of 9.
Yeah, 9 of 9.
Everyone's went for a touchdown.
Yeah, he's got to go. This year, 4 of 4.
Right.
4 touchdowns.
Yep. And a lot of them aren't a bad ball when he throws it. But I've always said to Chad, we have season tickets next to each other. What I've always brought up to him is he's so patient a lot of times behind the line. He reminds me when Le'Veon Bell was running for the Steelers.
Wow.
Just how he'll sit back there and kind of stutter for a second. Then he sees that hole and, boy, he takes off. And the acceleration,
We were
the
talking
speed and acceleration's insane.
When we were talking about different matchups, tell me a little bit. The one stat I'm looking at is that you guys do give up a decent amount of passing yards per game.
Yes.
Yep. Do teams get to you more at the safety position in their pass game or the corners? I know you've got your tremendous corner in Gardner, but what's you all's take on your defensive backfield against a good passing attack?
A lot of the passing attacks that we'll see tending to take advantage of our defensive secondary and things like that. It tends to be a lot of shorter routes. They don't get burned deep a whole lot. They tend to be right with the guy. We do tend to play a little handsy sometimes if it's a deep ball, but it's the teams that really hurt us with the passing game, like a Southern Illinois it wasn't a lot of deep throws. It was short crossing routes, short outs, wide receiver screens, things like that. And kind of picking on we had some corner injury issues. Obviously, Gardner was out for the majority of the year, breaking his wrist. And then had a couple other guys go down. Malik Lofton went down for a time as well. And we kind of got picked on a little bit there. And then, like the game against Sac State, I'm sure you've seen a little bit of it at least.
Yeah, I watched that whole game live.
Right. So that number 83 they had made some monster plays.
Yep.
And some phenomenal catches. But I think in general, outside of Don, sometimes teams try to pick on our corners a little bit more. We don't seem to get beat too deep too often over the safeties or anything like that.
And how about Michael Griffin and Cale Reeder, your two starting safeties? They seem to be really good against the run, and they want to get up in the box,
yep.
and they can get little off kilter where they're coming so hard upfield, and you play action them, and they can get caught a little bit. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment. They're very physical. They're very physical. Reeder, I think, gives me a heart attack about once a game while possibly getting the targeting penalty on them. But they want to bring the thunder on the run game, I would say, far more than they like to cover the pass almost. Just from watching them play, I'm sure they wouldn't say that. But, boy, they love to pop up on the run game. And there's been enough times this year where they've been burned, but it wasn't completed. And we got away with some stuff on the play action. And that's something that I always hold my breath on.
Is your guys feeling at the end of the day, because statistically you're so impressive on both sides of the ball, what's a better unit for you all at the end of the day? Your offense or defense?
Defensive line, in my opinion.
No, but I'm saying if you're just saying
overall.
Offense or your defense, what's a more impressive unit throughout this entire fall season?
If I was to go with impressive, I would probably go with the offense. The defense has, in my opinion, in the stat that matters the most is points per game, does a great job, but they tend to really struggle at times getting off the field on third downs and things like that. The offense, I would say, is the most impressive because, I mean, we've actually talked about it on our show, how we were mad after we were frustrated, not mad. We were frustrated with how the offense went, but then you look at the score and they put up 45 points. And it's just the offense is that capable of being dangerous, even when it's not firing on all cylinders. They can put up 40 points and you feel like they didn't have a good game.
Yeah, it's, you study these games and you watch film and you try to figure out where can you get to a team? And, we talked about a little bit of the safeties in the pass game and a little bit of overall being able to throw effectively against them from time to time.
Yep.
But I don't see, a lot of times you'll break down a team that's really good and you'll say, all right, but you can get them here and there. But I mean, I look at this game and I'm like, Villanova, it goes back to my point about Dan Smith. Dan Smith has got to throw the ball well from the start. He's got to get into a rhythm, because when he plays well early, he usually plays well throughout. Watch that tomorrow. And if he can if you see Villanova's short passing attack, cross the middle routes, medium pass attack, effective early, that's going to be a really good sign for us. And because, again, the Jackrabbits are so fundamentally sound. We've broken down almost every aspect of their team. And I think if Villanova is going to win this game, they have to throw the ball consistently and effectively for, 3 of the 4 quarters minimum.
Yes, I would agree. Because, if you look at, if we look at from a Jackrabbit perspective, the matchups that I like the least, it's a team that can run the ball but is really proficient passing, like Sam Houston State or Sac State. With their being in the Big Sky, they generally can throw the ball pretty well out there. Those sort of teams where that quarterback gets on a roll, it's kind of what happened with Southern Illinois. They can sling the ball around. You look at the teams that did beat us. USD can sling the rock pretty well. They have a good young quarterback. The UNI game was kind of an aberration, but we're kind of better built to face a team that is a run the ball, control it sort of offense, similar to what we want to try to do, like at North Dakota State. When you play them every year, and if you don't beat them, you end up getting sent there, 5 times out of 10, then you better beat them. So we kind of built our team a little bit from the lines out to be able to face a physical, violent attack like that. So we tend to match up a little better against a team that wants to run the ball. But like you were saying, if your quarterback gets in a rhythm, it could be a long day for Jackrabbit fans if the offense isn't clicking to fight back. But I will, and I know I saw that Villanova's incredible inside the red zone at scoring the football, and that's
efficiency is ridiculous.
And that's something our defense has been pretty good at, is efficiency at stopping teams in the red zone. So that'll be an interesting battle to watch, I think.
Yeah, and Villanova was down double digits at halftime at JMU and shut out JMU in the second half. And Dan Smith got in a rhythm and he threw for over 250 yards.
In that half?
In the game.
Oh,
and that,
okay.
I look back and, we win the game 28-27 and we're down 27 to, I think it was 27 to, I'm trying to remember real quick off the top of my head. I think we were down 12 at halftime, 12 or 13 at halftime, and, shut them out in the second half. And it was, I look back at that game and I was like, you know what? Coming into that game, I was like, if we don't throw effectively against JMU consistently, it's going to be so hard to win there. And I feel similar analogy as we break down this game, in all these aspects. I mean, we have to throw. Dan Smith. I'm thinking like that 250 is a good number. If he can throw for over 250 tomorrow, and have one interception or less, that's going to bode very well for us, knowing that he's streaky. And when he gets hot and he's in his own field, that's going to be key for us, I think, when you look at the big perspective of how we can win this game. Just like you guys have a lot of ways, I'm sure you're looking at us and saying, well, this needs to happen, this needs to happen. But I can't remember a playoff matchup where I was like, yeah, we'll run the ball, but we have to throw. And I'm not talking about 150 yards. I'm talking about 250. Like, I think that's the number for me tomorrow. Look at the end of the game, and if Villanova won, see if Smith threw for over 250 and had one or less picks.
So to kind of piggyback off of that a little bit, How has the Villanova offensive line been in pass protection this year? Has Dan stayed pretty clean in the pocket, or has he got a lot of pressure?
And he's deceptive. Like, he can run with the ball, and he's a guy that, he's the franchise quarterback. So they don't run him a lot, but you when you watch him tomorrow, you'll be like, oh wow, he's fast. Like, he can hurt you with his feet. He can buy time. And going back to your original question about the offensive line, we have a solid offensive line. We've had a couple injuries here and there on the offensive line that have hurt our continuity a little bit. But overall, we have a very good offensive line. And we have a quarterback that can buy time in the pocket, but can also, just on some design quarterback runs, hurt you.
Do you think they fare well against the 8-man, 9-man rotation we have on defense?
It goes back to my point, is the way you all play in your 4-3 with your safeties coming up a lot and just being aggressive in the run game. Yeah. I mean, it's just hard to run against you all. So I think we've got some really good backs, as I mentioned, with really good depth. And I think we'll get some runs here and there, and hopefully we'll have a really balanced attack where our run game is very effective and we get South Dakota State off balance a little bit. But, it goes back to, if you guys are going to load up the box and do what you do and shut down the run, you know what? We got to throw for 250 plus, bottom line.
I'd say that's probably a fair assessment for how our defense is set up. Ryan, we got a viewer question for you quick here, and I know we've kept you a little late, but Terry,
happy to do it.
Well, I appreciate it. Terry Jungan asks, how do you think the officiating's been this season? There was a lot of griping conference-wide in the Valley about how officiating has. Did you feel it was any different in the CAA, or has it been a pretty general year and fans are just kind of noticing it more as a byproduct of TV and NFL broadcasts having rules analysis on every 5 seconds?
Yeah, I haven't noticed anything particular this year, but I'll say just something over several years in the making now is when any time during a game, when a first down is even close and it should be measured, and they just say go. They just say go.
Yes.
Yep.
Move the sticks. It's fascinating to me. I mean, it happens a lot where you're like, there's no way that's a first down.
Right.
And next thing you know, the sticks have been moved and somebody snapped the ball and I'm back to my play-by-play and I don't even have time to talk about it. It's just right. Amazing to me that it's sort of got that way in the last, 2 to 5 years, 3 to 5 years. And it's like this common theme everywhere you go, that if it's around the spot of a first down, move the sticks and we're going.
Yeah, and I just wave them on.
I'm a big guy on I play a lot of golf and I got a bad golf game right now, but I used to be pretty decent in high school and now I'm pretty awful. But I make my 2-foot putts and I don't pick them up and I like to know what I shot. And
right.
and I'm sort of like I like the word integrity, and I'm like, I don't like when somebody gets a first down and they didn't have it.
I agree completely. I mean, there's been a couple times. I mean,
we can go back to the last game.
I can only think of 3 or 4 times all year that they've measured for a first down, when that used to happen 2-3 times a game, because they're close that often. And I wonder if they're starting to do that because they're.
Everybody wants to keep the games moving. So
yes, trying to make them go faster.
That they're probably getting that from the higher ups of saying, keep this thing moving. So what's the best way to keep it moving? Not have 6 more measurements a game.
Right. Yep,
so
that makes a huge difference.
I pretty much know what it is. It is what it is. I mean,
but it'd be a good time to run a media timeout and not waste that time otherwise.
Yeah, it's just that to me is just pretty fascinating. That's the one thing that stood out to me to answer that question that came in. Hopefully, that's one angle to look at that makes a little sense.
What's your thought on the state of targeting calls in college football as a whole?
Well, I just think you hear a lot of announcers say, well, he didn't mean it. Well, that doesn't matter.
No.
Right. Yep.
It is or it's not. And it's really maddening and it's frustrating a lot of times when great players, you watch a guy that's running and he ducks and you're like, I mean, you're sitting there going, this is not fair. But
Yeah.
it's just, they're just going to go on the side of caution to protect not only the players with the ball, but they're trying to protect, everybody, both sides, so they're just,
Right.
it is what it is. That I'm fine with it for the most part, because one person gets an injury that, like that could cost them, a broken neck or anything like that. I mean, I just, the sport of football has become, I mean, look at the NFL. I mean, the violence of the sport with the speed and the strength. Oh my gosh. Yep. I mean, these guys that come out of these NFL games, I don't know how they even get out of bed the next day.
Right.
Yeah, I guess how I've seen it is just like, has it even lowered the number of incidences? I mean, I guess it's worked on focus, but
I mean, yeah, it's been the focus, and I'm fine with that. Like if they need extra time to check it and make sure, and at the end of the day, you want to see good players not get kicked out of games.
Yeah.
But if someone does it and it's even close, they're going to get called for it. It's just it's those brutal ones where somebody's running down the field and then all of a sudden they duck and the guy's helmet was not even going to be within 3 feet, and then all of a sudden it's like, nope, that's targeting, and like, oh
yeah.
But it's a really tough one. It's interesting you guys brought that up, because that and those first downs, like, that just stands out to me. There's not a good answer a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because you just know they're going to keep doing it.
The only issue I have with targeting to me is where, maybe that's not fully true what I was going to say, but where the offense's maneuver can get you kicked out of a game.
Yeah.
Just because
that's what he was saying.
He ducked his head.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
It's like they got to have
the toughest thing.
Sorry, Brendan. It's like they got to have a flagrant 1, flagrant 2 kind of deal.
Yep. Villanova, I'll be on a flight tomorrow night to Texas to call Baylor Villanova on Sunday in Waco, 2 versus 6. And I'll have to get all my college basketball rules, make sure I'm not thinking football. It's a big weekend for Villanova. We were talking about hoops earlier, and I've never remembered in all these years I've called a game ever a weekend like this, where we're playing at a game of this magnitude in football with a quarterfinal and a trip to the national semifinals on the line. And then Villanova's playing on national TV on Sunday against the defending national champions in Waco, who's undefeated and ranked 2 in the country. And Villanova played Baylor tougher than anybody in the NCAA tournament last year, including Gonzaga. Villanova, people forget this. Villanova was up 7 points at halftime on Baylor.
Unreal.
Yeah.
And one of our key players in that game, Brandon Slater, went out late and came back like with a minute to go. But that injury, we went toe to toe. Davion Mitchell and those 3 guards were just unbelievable. They sort of imposed their will on that game. But this is, from Villanova's perspective, this is an all-time weekend we've got on the football basketball combo. Going back to when we chatted about that, I failed to mention that earlier about this crazy weekend for the Cats.
Right. I don't know as a sports fan how I'd be able to handle that. I might explode, just spontaneously combust on the spot if we had a weekend like that. My goodness.
Yeah, this is going to be so much fun, and all my son said, who's 13, who loves this. He helps me prep for games, and he's a fanatic. He loves it. He said to me tonight, gave me a big hug, and said, "Dad, just come home 2-0, Dad. Just come home 2-0. He's focused for the Jackrabbits, and he's focused for the Bears.
Well, speaking of having a long weekend, we really respect your time, and I think we'll call this a night. If you want to hold on just for a second with us.
Yeah, sounds great. It's been a lot of fun, guys.
Well, Brendan?
Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you so much for jumping on with us. With that, apologies, Ryan. We end this as we always do. Go big, go blue, go Jacks.
Go Jacks.
Wow, we're so bad at it.